And May 25th, is that the doc there? Yeah, that's the one. Okay, tanse ka kyo pitagoy. I'm gonna bump this up. That seems okay there. And then that seems fine. And then what else did we need? We need the summary paradigm tables. That one there. Yeah, we'll do this in the browser like we did last time. I think that's fine. Okay. Tansika kyo pitagoy. Yamiheo gisaga, yamahao gisago, yamiheo gisago. I don't know which way is the proper way to say Sunday. Let's look it up. Sunday. Ayamahao gisago. Anuts gagisagag. Ayamahao gisago. I got these new, oh, those are good. I got these new $5 Michael's crafting reading glasses. They magnify because I'm at that age. My eyeballs are failing me, so I have to lean back to read my comments on TikTok. But I can see them through these glasses pretty good. I think it's saying you, Ian. Getting to be an old man. I'm rushing to get set up tonight. We'll leave this a few minutes. We'll let the live trickle in before we get started. We were working on this story last week. This one here. Ga ayaso mitonawao. And we looked up what these pieces meant. Where was that at? Down here, I think. Ayaso. Bit by bit. Ayaso. That piece there means bit by bit, I guess. Mananto niya. Kiwa maga. I'm just going through these notifications on every time I open TikTok, it's different. Gisik mananto sagejak nistaman nit kimaga kiwamaga. How are you? Mutipskau anutsaya. It's a beautiful evening. So this story, you can say kiga. Let me see if I can bump that up a tiny bit more. Try and make it readable on your phone. Nope, it won't let me. How do I zoom? There we go. That doesn't seem too bad, eh? Can read that okay? Guys, so mitonawao. That's the name of the story. Bit by bit, you will give it to each other, but I guess the interpretation here is you will pass them on to one another. Cree stories of the horse and buffalo. And it says this is a draft text, do not cite or copy. So naturally it's been published on the internet because that's the way it works. Aha, okay, there's a few of us here. Let's get going. So last week we were talking about some of this we're just reading this story and getting into the grammar a little bit. I was having a discussion with my wife about this. We were talking about stories, the power of stories. We were talking about methods for making language more accessible to learners, folks who are wanting to get beyond an intermediate level. So we're going to talk about this for a minute and try and recall some of the things we were talking about, because my wife just went to a language conference. Maybe I'll turn this around for this part. You can look at my face. Look at my face and we can visit. The thing we were talking about was she went to this conference. My wife, she just went to this conference in Chase, BC. It was a language conference. I don't know the name. She just got back yesterday, and there was this one lady who spoke there, and I can't remember her name. My wife was really excited to see her speak, and she talked about TPRS, but my wife was like, oh, but she talks like she does it the way it should be done, like the way I want to do it. About the way to about using stories to help create comprehension, and some of the conversation revolves around things like word lists, and like again, this isn't a criticism of any of the resources out there. It's more a conversation around what more resources we need to develop to get into more intermediate level language, because that's the problem we have right now. I think in a lot of our indigenous languages, and I'm happy to be wrong about this, but for my experience, nêhiyawêwin in the Cree language community, there's a lot of like beginner material, and there's a lot of like really advanced material, and we need more material or more activities or more something to help get language learners to a more intermediate level. Once you have a bit of language, I got some friends that are fired. Oh, I should mention, they got some friends fired up. If you're in Calgary, if you're in the Calgary area, there's a I'll come back to that comment in a second, Prism. If you're in the Calgary area, they're firing up a conversational group there. I've got the details. I've got the poster. I'll pull it up, and it's going to be at the Tisqua. I'm not even prepared for this. I'll put the details on my TikTok. There's a conversational group firing up in Calgary. I'm really excited about this. So to Prism's comment there, I don't think it's more about resources. Prism says, I don't think it's more about resources. It has more to do with people just needing to speak more. That's fine. I don't disagree with that. People do need to speak more. The question is, what if you don't have access to fluent speakers? Or if you're in my situation, I know, okay, think about this, okay? We're in English immersion all the time. We're constantly immersed in English. English is everywhere. It's pressing into our day-to-day all the time. I have kids at home. My kids at home are 17, 14, and 8. Should be 8 this week. And they're constantly surrounded by English, and we're constantly trying to introduce more language. So even in a home where we are actively, both my wife and I are both actively working on our languages, it's difficult to create opportunities or environments where the language is only spoken. One of my mentors is a fluent speaker. She teaches dialect. She's a fluent speaker. She's a highly fluent speaker. Her first language was nêhiyawêwin, and she messaged me a while ago asking me what I do to get more language in the home, because she was getting her little one, getting her youngest to speak. And I'm like, you're a fluent speaker. Why are you asking me? So the problem is that we're immersed in English constantly. And so one of the things that we do is we try to, if there's like media resources in the language, like I've scoured the internet, YouTube, for every video in the language, especially kids stuff. We don't have a smart TV. We have a TV with a stick plugged in the back, and the kids can access that language whenever they want. Wapos Bay. I've even scraped some stuff off APTN Lumi, anything off of YouTube, all of the stuff that Solomon Rat's done, and then stuff from my wife's language. The kids still watch it now and again. It's hard to get them to watch it a lot because they want to consume English material. They want to consume English stuff. So Prism, back to what I'm trying to say is, I talk to and interface with a lot of people who are already grown, they're already adults. They want their language. They want to give their language to their kids. They have little or no access to fluent speakers. And actually, I'll talk about fluent speakers in a minute. And they've taken classes and stuff, but they don't know how to put language in their day-to-day. So just back to your one comment about people just needing to speak more, they don't have the language to speak, right? They don't have access to the language to speak. and there might be some books or resources or YouTube or something like that. Like every language learner I know that's at an intermediate level has taken their language journey into their own hands, has developed their own way of advancing their own language to get to the level that they're at right now. So, and then we look back, as intermediate learners, we look back at the beginners who are trying to get to where they think we are, and we're trying to find ways to help them advance faster, because it's been an uphill battle. Like it's an uphill battle constantly, every day. Every day is an uphill battle to learn this language. I'm going to get caught up on these comments, so I just rattled on for a minute there. So I don't disagree with what you're saying, but they don't have the language. So how do we get them the language that they're going to speak? That's the problem, right? And it's not just about having the language. It's about understanding as well, right? Like when we sit and listen to elders speak, and back to the comments about fluent speakers. So when we listen to fluent speakers, like this group that's firing up in Calgary here, they even had it on the poster, fluent speakers welcome. I'm like, don't worry about fluent speakers just yet. Like, they'll show up. Don't worry about that. But if you don't have the language, if you don't have it very much language, and fluent speakers show up, you're not going to be speaking in the language because you're not ready yet, right? If a fluent speaker shows up and they speak in the language and you don't understand them, they feel like they're not being understood. You're frustrated because you don't understand them, and then everybody stops using the language and you just speak English. So we must self-study, in my opinion. We must spend time on our own getting prepared for those moments where we run into fluent speakers, so that we can just have conversation, right? So that we can just use the language that we have. And then if somebody tells a story, or there's a couple of fluent speakers sitting there speaking, we have a good chance of understanding what they're saying, right? So we inevitably end up spending a lot of time on our own, right? Watching YouTube, puzzling through. Man, when I started out, I was listening to the Bible recorded in the language. I didn't understand any of it, right? Because it was the only thing I could find. There's a lot of materials out there. They're not categorized by level. They're different fluent speakers. They're different communities. They're different dialects. So it makes it very inaccessible, right? So back to the conference. Not to just use acronyms, TPRS or whatever. It just relates back to the idea of stories. I think stories is really the way forward here, right? Practicing storytelling or using stories to teach the language, because it focuses on what could be called comprehensible input. If you can tell a story, even a very simple story, and somebody understands 75, 80%, 90% of what you're saying, if they don't, you can take it and make it a simple story and just focus on a little bit of vocab and then a few actions. If somebody understands all of the words in your story except for that one word, they have a better chance of following along, right? That's all I was trying to say is, and I can't speak on comprehensible input or TPRS very much, but it does relate to stories. I use stories in what I do, and so I try to focus on that. I'm going to get caught up on the comments because there was a whole bunch here. Okay, Tisqua. Nanya says, it's always Calgary getting the good stuff. There is a conversational group in Edmonton, but they move around. They used to run it at Denny's over by the Royal Alex, and then they were at Ambrose for a bit, and there was some stuff happened. I don't know all the details. And now I see that I'm in the message group, and they're meeting in a Wendy's or something. It used to just be at one place, and so I'll have to reach out to the group and see what they're doing, if they're open to more people. Nanya says, Prism says, I'm Cree, teach the language. I learned Spanish in 4 months in advance, Swahili in 6 months. I don't know about Swahili. For Spanish, I mean, you can just go on Duolingo or find a course, and you can get programs. You can get all of your favorite TV shows in Spanish. You can get all that stuff in Spanish. We don't have any of that for nêhiyawêwin, right? As an intermediate language learner, there's 100% not enough resources. Even the stuff they're putting on APTN that's dubbed, it's okay. I would like to see first language content on APTN where we're not just dubbing other shows. It's not bad. It's still good because it's And even like Wapos Bay is good. It'd be nice to see more first language content in nêhiyawêwin. Nanya says, you're right on, it's true, we need immersion. Immersion would be good if you could have just immersion all the time. I'd be lost for a while. Like you'd be lost, you'd be like, I don't understand what's going on, but then if you were in it long enough, your brain would sort it out. I would love to see that. I mean, the Hear Fluent speaker said all the time, we just need immersion environments, and I don't disagree with that at all. But I'm like, okay, where do we create them? Where like we need workspaces where the language is used. We need it needs to be used in our homes. It needs to be used in our schools. Like if we could create immersion environments everywhere, that would be ideal. But we don't have that, and we don't have the supports for that. So how do we get there? Prism says, I can write. When I got into sentence making, everything clicked. I think sentences make a lot of sense. We're working on an app right now which is focused on like phrases or sentences. Louise asks, what's a good way to start studying? If you're studying on your own, let me flip my camera. Actually, well, I got a hard copy here somewhere. There's this book here. You don't need the physical copy. I apologize, that's backwards. The Cree language on the language of the plains by Jinoge Masis. This book, because there's PDFs online. So if you go to my site, kiano.net, I'll pull that up in a minute. You can get the PDFs online for both the normal book, the workbook, and then the audio is online as well. So Jinoge Masis does the audio for all of the workbook. And so if you're just getting started out, this is the resource that I recommend, because it has the audio with it and you can follow along through the whole workbook. Nanya says, we need to know how to go from saying horse to horses to my horse to my horses. Yeah, and I was like, I don't mean to harp on like, we need to, it's one of the things that I get frustrated with, like, when I started talking about this, because we were talking about conferences or whatever. How do you, we need to be able to get to a place where you can say, like, as soon as you're done eating, go and tell your sister to come inside. Right? Or when you're finished with that, can you go get your mom for me? Can you go and tell your mom that I need the red book off the shelf in the bedroom? Right? Like day-to-day stuff. Like a lot of the language we're getting, like a lot of the stuff that's on YouTube, and a lot of the, it's like cultural stuff, which is great. We need that. Sometimes if we go to ceremony, we get ceremonial stuff. Like we need all of that stuff. But there's this chunk in the middle where it's like day-to-day stuff. Day-to-day stuff, just like talking to me. Like my wife said it best, actually. The language you would get when you were a baby, right? The language you would get when you were little. Like the stuff that we need is the kind of stuff that you don't necessarily say to adults per se. Or like we don't teach, like when you go and take a course, you learn about like how to say your name, and you learn a bunch of word lists, where you're from, which is good. All of that stuff's good. But the stuff that I want in my day-to-day is conversational, right? The stuff like, go empty this pail and then fill it with whatever, dirt or whatever. We're going to take this, we're going out to the bush. We need, like whatever, like the stuff you would say to your kids when they were little, growing up, that they would just hear day to day. That's the kind of language that I'm trying to get into my life, because it's the conversational stuff, right? The mundane stuff. Does Ruben call that the sacred and the sacred and the mundane or whatever? Anyway, I just got off on a rant there. Let's work on some language. Let's work on some language. All right, so I do a lot of self-study. Let me get turned around here. The bulk of my language journey is self-study. I like to use stories. So we started on this last week using this story, and focusing on the grammar a little bit, because my wife and I were talking about this yesterday, and it's like, or was it? Did she say the? No, it was the lady. It's the woman's presentation she went to, which was like, nouns are the easiest thing to learn. Like, we shouldn't teach nouns. You can learn all the nouns from all the apps. The things that we should be teaching is like the verbs and the grammar. Like, I'm not saying you have to learn, you have to study the grammar, but if you do, like, you can't say anything without understanding the grammar a little bit, right? So anyway, that's what I go. So this is what we did last week. We worked through this first sentence of the story. I'll just read it right now, and then we'll talk about some of these words, because we looked into this gawi big squehaya, this one here, and then e kakwe timaya gawi tamagoyak, and we basically went into all of the verbs and broke them down. Gagi tawote, right? So we can start to understand what these mean, right? Because the nouns, I think we understand, like atimuin, we understand what atimuin is, right? Munias, we understand what munias is, right? And then notawi, we know what that is, notawi, right? This is the person's name. Niso, that's to. Pamois, before. But then these other words, the words that we wouldn't understand the story if we didn't break them down a little bit and understand what they mean. Not just what the word means, but when we're talking about verbs, especially verbs that involve multiple people, then we need to understand who's saying what to who's doing what to who. We did it to them, they did it to us, whatever that looks like. We need to kind of understand that. So let me just read this first one, and then we'll get into this a little bit more. Donna says, Danse. Wow, tagawi pig squehayak myron paske min no tawi giteaya kakoitsimaya kawitamagoyak aya timuan anihini sto pamoes muniasota gagitagote exan makiegua. So then we broke into those a little bit, and we figured out, okay, gawi big squehaya, what does that mean? Well, that comes from this word here, big squeheo, which is like that person interviews someone, or that one makes someone else, talk about something, right? And then if it turns into a big squehaya, what does that mean? Well, what that means is, I didn't put it there, but that actually means us to that person, right? 3S, that person. So we asked, or we interviewed that person, I guess you could say, like us. I'm not saying you interviewed them, and I'm not saying I interviewed them. I'm saying us, but not you interviewed them, right? So we're starting to get into the grammar a little bit. And then the same with that this one here. We asked this person, and again, this isn't I asked the person or you asked the person. It's us, but not you. Okay? We are asking this person. If we were asking more than one person, we would say right? If it was all of us, right, then it would be if it was all of y'all, if all of y'all were asking that person, it'd be right? So what does this part mean, and how do we figure that out? That's what we're looking at. That's what we're kind of, because when we get into these stories, it's difficult to understand a story, or it's difficult to tell a story if we don't know these different ways of saying these words. I'm just going to adjust my phone one more time. That seems okay. And then this one here too. Gawitamagoya. Well, this is similar, but this one goes the other way. We talked about that a little bit. If we say witamaya, right? Witamoya. I spelled that wrong. Witamoya. We tell that one, us but not you, we tell that one. But that go makes it the other way. That one to tell us. Witamagoya. That one's telling us something. Prism says some of the endings depend on the community too. Instead of tik, some say wow. Yeah, so that's a I hear where you Tante Otsigi Prism. I hear that wow is like northern Alberta, and then in TH dialect they say that too. Right? If you say ea timotik, though that's the way we would say that. We would say ea timotik. They're telling stories, but in some areas they'll say ea timotwao. Yeah, timotwao. So it's just a regional difference kind of thing. Saddle Lake. Yep, that way. And more northern, they say wow. Yeah, that's right. Saddle Lake. Onidskaponig. 5 years in, I still can't say the name of that one. Onidskaponig. I'll get it one of these days. Onidskaponig. When I hear Neil say that, he just says it so perfectly, and I've been working on it forever. Okay, so let's read some more of this story. Oh yeah, and then that gagi tago date, when they arrived, when they arrived. In this case, it's sort of singular, like they're implying more than one person, but they just use that gagi tago date munias. Okay, so let's tie into the second one here. Kayas et tagoy o nêhiyawêwin o te nêhiyatik nêhiyaw sagaygani. Ego te nistam egi o pigihitoyet. That's got that ito. We talked about this last week, that ito. So we might recognize this one little bit, oh pige, which is like to raise, to grow up, I guess, oh pige. But then that oh pigeheo is like to raise. That one raises somebody, like, you know, their kids or something. Oh pigeheo. To raise someone, to rear someone. You're being more specific here. Oh, pigeheo, that's what they call that. They call that transitive, right? There's, if we do a little review, there's 4 types of verbs. There's verbs that don't involve anybody, like miwasin. There's verbs that involve one person, like atsimo. That one tells a story. Then there's verbs that involve a person and a thing, like nêhiyawêwin, like that one reads something, or what's a better one? Mitsinam, that one grabs something. And then there's verbs that involve 2 people, and that's what we're working with here. So like pigsquateo, like that person talks to somebody, or kakwitsameo, that person asks somebody. So again, this is pigeheo, that one raises someone or raises them. But then there's an interesting that ito pigihitoyet. And over here there's a little translation that says where they first begin to multiply. So it sort of almost sounds like istamegi o pigihitoyet. I'm not familiar with this exact word, but to me it almost sounds like, you know, when they, I wouldn't say raised each other, I guess, but I guess where they first began to multiply, I guess that's the way you'd say that. Let's look at this verb though, nêhiyatik. I make that a bit bigger. So what does that mean, nêhiyatik? So that comes from this word. Oh, let's write it out first. Whoops. Oh, come on. Somebody showed me a trick here. If I go option IE. Nope. How do I do that again? Option O. No, that's not it. Oh, my keyboard has given up the doing what I want here. Okay, we'll just borrow this one. That, get rid of the bold. Oh, this won't even do what I want. It's being annoying. Let's do it this way. It comes from this word, ayaw. This word can mean a few different things. There's actually, they classify it as several different verb types. This one, if you look, it actually exists as all of them. So it exists as a verb that involves two people, that VTA. It exists as a verb that involves one person. It exists as that verb that doesn't involve anybody. And then the verb that involves a person and something, ayaw, exists as a verb. That word exists in all of those. I don't know if there might be another word. I can't think of it though. So ayaw can be like ayaw, which is usually is like nitayan, like I have it, or nitayan, like uta nitayan, like I am here, like to be there, to be at a place, to be located somewhere. But then you can say it for some things as well. It's a really interesting word. But anyway, in this particular context, in this sentence, they were there. They were here at what he's calling a Cree Lake, I guess. They were here, is what he's saying. So that comes from that word, ayaw. Okay, let's do another one. There's a verb. Okay. One was born. Awasis. Ewapasut. Well, look at these words, where they come from. Now they have that T ending, so we're talking about one person. Because if we look at generally speaking, if we take a word like, I don't know, atsimo, and we look at boy, that's really, if we look at that, I gotta go change this. We see that one that ends in a T. This isn't always the case, but it's just a bit of a giveaway. That version that ends in a T, atsumut, we're talking about that person. We're talking about someone else. Atsumut. So these are the same. Ganitawgit, ewapasut. Okay, we're talking about that person. So this one's interesting, actually. We'll break into this one too, because this wite kind of means together, but you have to use it, or you use it with this M right here. So there's sort of that word again, opige, which is like to be raised, I guess, or to grow up. But if you use wite, opige male, that's to grow, that person grows up with somebody or is raised with somebody. Comment from Prism Tisqua. Sorry, I don't always get my comments. T. John Saddle Acre also. Prism says the T ending doesn't always mean that. If you look at Siga, so their name, some say Siga Sut. I just mean it. All I mean to say is that that T is like at the end, it's a bit of a giveaway that we're talking about that third person. Because if it's me, it's Siga Soyan. If it's you, it's Siga Soyin. Siga Sut, we're talking about that T at the end is kind of a giveaway. In the context of a verb, it's a giveaway that we're talking about the third person, just at the end of the word only, right? At the end of the word, a siga sut, a atsimut, a nigamut, that T at the end sort of just, it's a bit of a hint that we're talking about the third person. But yeah, like no, T also mean main topic at hand, like notawê, change T to C. Notawis, yep, which would be a little bit different context, because that's in the context of a noun or a something, right? There's actually a lot of places where that T can turn into a C, grammatical rules. We won't go into all of those today. Mostly just trying to pull apart some of these verbs, right? We already know the nouns, like we know what a wasis is, wistasa. This one wistasa. I don't know that word. Over here it says cousin, I guess. Wistasa. So that's, but for our purposes tonight, we're just going to break apart these verbs and start to explore how do we find out what they mean. So this word here, nêhiyawêwin, okay, what we can do if we're talking about the third person, whenever you see a verb like this, if you look it up in the dictionary, if you use the Eric Woven Gray Dictionary or you use this nêhiyawêwin online here, you can say nêhiyawêwin. They always show you the third person form. There's a word for that. But so you see this nêhiyawêwin. And if you go into that, you can see again, they've sort of got the third person form in bold. That's the way it is. And they always use that particular one in the dictionary because there's all of these different ones. In this particular case, there's quite a few here. They just highlight that one in bold because that's the one they use as the dictionary term. But it doesn't make it special or anything. It just means that's the one that they're using to look it up in the dictionary. If we go down to the bottom of this and show the rest of these, right? Again, we see that T on the end there. So that's a giveaway, that T on the end. Another example, like Prism says, where the T turns to C, when this person becomes more than one, we're talking about them, that T turns into a C here, and we end up with tik, right? Nêhiyawêwin. Anyway, this particular word means that person was born. Nêhiyawêwin. So, back to our story. So at one point in time, this child was born. This one child was born. A wapa sut. There's that T again. So we can look up wapa su and go see what that word means. Wapa su. The child was fair-skinned. It was a fair-skinned child. E wapa sut. Egota egiwite opigimat. Wista sa. So let's look at this one. Egiwite opigimat. I'm gonna reload this page and see if I can fix my keyboard because it's being a pain. Tisqua. Get back in there. Nope. No, it's being a pain in the butt. Is it because I changed my... Oh, it's because of that keyboard, isn't it? Yeah, that's what the problem is. I got a button in here that tries to change my keyboard on me, so we'll just... So let's look at that. A, gi. Gi puts it in the past. In the past, but in this what they call the conjunct mode, whenever a word starts with a, it's sort of relative to the current context. So this gi can put things in the past relative to the context of whatever's being talked about. So egiwitse opigimat wistasa. So we've learned that wistasa. Oh, that's like nistas. That's what that is. Nistas is like my cousin, I guess, or my, would you say brother-in-law? Would that, let's look that up. Didn't recognize that. Nistas. Cross cousin, father, sister, son, brother-in-law. Yeah, brother-in-law or cousin. So wistasa. We'll talk about why that A is there in a second. So he'd been raised with his cousin, egiwitse opigimat. So how this word comes about, or what that means is, let me just, egiwitse. Did I change? I did. Tisqua. Is that the right one? Opigimat, which means that person, that one was raised with that other person. We'll just put them. One or more people. And the root of this one is opigu. which means they grow up, I guess you could say grow up, or they are raised. Yeah, we'll just say they grow up. I think that's what it said here. Oh, big. To grow up, to be raised. Yep. So they grow up. But what's interesting about this is so for this, the command form, which you wouldn't really say as a command. Oh, biggie. You wouldn't say that to someone. It wouldn't make sense. Unless, I don't know, can you say that like you're telling someone to grow up? Would you say that? Oh, biggie. I don't know if you could say that. I've never heard of it before. But something really interesting happens here. The website I'm using for word search is called nêhiyawêwin. If you just search for the Plains Cree dictionary, I think you could, I don't know, Plains Cree. Should show up at the top. nêhiyawêwin. It's that one right there. nêhiyawêwin, Plains Cree dictionary. It's from the University of Alberta and MESC, I think, I forget the acronym. Musquetees Educational something. I forget what it means. But the cool thing about this dictionary is when you click on this, you can see all of the different, what they call these conjugations, because in the, if you want to say this person grows up, oh, pigu, we're talking about one person, oh, pigu, that one grows up. If I want to say me, I say nito begin. If I say you, I say kito begin. And then there's us but not you. This is nianan. Nito biganan. Kiano, this is all of us here. This one here. Kito biganano. Kito bigano or kito biganano. Okay. Then all of y'all. Kito biganawaw. Then those ones. Oh, pimpahtâwak. And then there's technically another further away person. Oh, pigiwa. And then there's, we'll worry about those other, what they call X-actor forms later. Musqua means bear. In some places, it's just a bear in general. In some places, it's specifically a type of bear. Depending which community you're from, it can be, but generally speaking, Musqua just means bear. Okay, so if we go back to our word here, so oh pigu means grow up. If I take the ending off, we look at that part on the end, oh pi, and then if we take and put we tse and an m. Oh, sorry, I was going to say, this is that, what they call a special verb, or like the type of word that only involves one person. They call that a VAI. It's just a word that it's one person, a VAI. If you put we tse and m on there, it changes the type of verb. It's now transitive. It now involves two people. So this person is, that person grows up. That's just this one. But for this to be actually a verb now, I got to fix my keyboard again. Wito pigameo is how would you say that. And that would be like they grow up with somebody. They grew up with someone. And so now this is this person and that other person, what they call that obviative person. So that witse, maybe I'll bold that just so it makes sense. And that M. And you can do that with lots of stuff. What's cool about this is why I think this is why grammar's kind of cool. Again, you don't have to learn it this way, but this is what makes grammar kind of cool. Because you can take that, let me just put it here, witse, like that, and then M, okay? And that makes it like, it makes it transitivized, or I'll say it this way, with, makes it just kind of with, transitivizes it, transitivize, I don't know how to spell that. It means with, so you can take some words now, just by knowing this little bit here, and you can use that to make, if you know a word like, I don't know, if you know a Cree word that's a verb, an action word, just put it in the chat and we'll try and use it. So if we take atsimo, I'm going to steal that from somebody. Atsimo means like, yeah, tell a story or something like that. Okay. But if you said, Nitatsimon, I tell a story. Okay. Again, this is that what they call a VAI. It's just a, sorry, I spelled that wrong. A verb that it just involves sort of like one person. But if I take that atsimo and I put we tse on the front and m, now I've turned it into a verb that involves two people. Transitivize it. So now I can say niwitse atsimo mau. I tell a story with that one. Nitatsimon, I tell a story. We took that witse, let me bold that again, and that M and wrapped it around that VAI. I wrapped it around that part there. Let me just underline that. Hopefully that's easy enough to see. Right? Nitatsimon. And we put witse and M on the end. And now we make it a verb that involves two people. And I can say, Niwitsatsimo mau. I tell a story with that person. Niwits nigomo mau. Niwitse toske mau. I work with that person. Niwitse, I don't know. Nimito mau, which is kind of weird. Nimito mau, niwitsu nimito mau. I dance with that person. That'd probably be the wrong way to say that. Anyway, that's what that is. So that word, egi witso pigimat, he'd been raised with that other person. There's that T again, but this time it's a long AT, mat. You kind of just get a sense for when these words are like transitive or intransitive. It's just kind of, they either fit into one meaning or another. So again, that sort of, we talked about the T before. This is a bit of a giveaway, but it's because it's a different type of verb. You kind of look at it and you go, okay, that's actually witse, mat, that's transitive. That at means, that means this person, sorry, to that person. That person was raised with them. It's a long roundabout way. So that's what that means. Egi witso pigamat. Wistsa, he was raised with his cousin. Egi witso. Hegwe ketato sa peak gani tau getawasis. And so one time, what does they say over here? There was this baby born who had light skin. He grew up there together with his cousin. Egwa egota egi witso pigamat wistsa. All right, next one. By the way, if you have questions, just feel free to drop them in the chat. Yep, there's no such thing as a silly question. If there's any part of this that's, we're into some intermediate level stuff here. This is like, but I'm convinced now. I'm convinced. Oh, the other thing we're going to talk about. Yeah, this one here. Wistsa. We're going to talk about why is that A on the end? We have to put that there, okay? Because we've got two people in this. Remember, we're talking about this verb involves two people. Higewitso pigimat. So if you have awasis, I see there's a couple questions there. Give me 30 seconds. Person makes a good point. I think the issue with the stories is very third-person based, and that's the thing that's so great about that point is I argue that you can't tell a story without talking about other people. That's why I focus on this stuff. This word here, wistasa, there's a word for this. It's called the obviate. It just means the other third person, the other person. And when I first started learning the language, people would say, oh, don't worry about that. It's too hard. Don't worry about it. Just come back to that later. And I think that was a mistake. Because one, it's not that hard to figure out. Like once you understand it, it makes sense. But the thing is that there are harder things than this in the language. And if we always, it's sort of like the noun argument. Like if we just learn nouns, right? Oasis, wistasa. If we just learn nouns, it's like there's only so many nouns, but there are thousands of verbs. Thousands and thousands. And if we look at this transitive verb, okay, this verb that involves two people, if we go back and look at this for just a second, I'm just going to use pigsquateo, or let's use something everybody would know. Sagiheo, that person loves somebody, okay? You know that word kisagitin, right? That comes from this. If we look at this chart, okay? If we look at this chart, these are all of the different, because there's so many different groups of two different people, these are all of the different ways to say this. There are like a lot. There's a lot. It takes a long time to learn this. And the thing is that you don't have to study it this way. I'm not telling you have to learn it this way. What I'm saying is, if we always avoid the hard stuff, then we never get here. We never get into this. We never learn. Sagihiake. Sagihiake, which means if you love me. If all of y'all, if you love us. If you love us. Sagihitwawe, if you love them, all of them. Sagehimatse, if you love that other person. And the thing is that when you get into stories, like Tapskutsoma, Jesqua. Right? I'm just grabbing a few examples here. When you get into stories, Tapskutsomota, Guaskepe giskanoma, giskanowapatitsik. Here's one example. Their example showed me the way. Boom, Waskaiganini nuatsamona, stories of the house people, or even here's another good one here. Anaga bimweo ogageski gamona. These books, these stories from fluent speakers, the thing is that they use all of these. Like, they might only use this once in the whole book, this particular form of this word. But the problem is if you don't know most of these, you can't tell a story, and you can't, or like you could tell a simple story. But when fluent speakers speak, this is how beautifully complex the language is that fluent speakers use all of these. I'm in a live right now, so keep the yelling down, please. There's some some child battles. Cisco, I'll come back to your questions in just a second. So I don't dodge any of this. I don't say, oh, that's too hard, we'll come back to it later. I'm saying, let's get into it now. Because, and then I show off this chart made by Ben Godden. If you go and study that Cree language of the plains by Gino Kimasis, all of this conjugation system is in there. So this is like, Ben calls this 90 pages of grammar in one chart. So we've got our 4 different, apologize for the yelling in the background there. We've got our 4 different verb types. Verbs that don't involve nobody, here's the chart. There's only really 8 of those. Verbs that involve one person, there's only really 16 of those. Verbs that involve one person and a thing, there's only really 16 of those. And then the verbs that involve 2 people, there's a whole bunch of those, because you have I see that person sees me. I see those people see me. We saw that person saw us. We saw those people saw us. All of these different, right? It takes a long time. Probably carried this around in my back pocket and studied this transitive chart for about 2 years. I kept a paper copy of this in I still have it somewhere, right? And so you don't have to do it this way, but I'm trying to, when I read, I don't focus on the words like, oasis, wistasa. I'm focused on the words like, igiwitso pigimat. What does that mean? And then how can I use that in my day-to-day? Okay, great questions. I'm going to get through the questions here. So Mariah, do you know the word for smudge? So if you want to say smudge yourself, you could say miahkasso. Miahkassoin would be the act of smudging, but wigask Wigaskwa would be like sweetgrass, I guess. There's different types of smudge, so you could say a miskoigwask, we could say a mustus wigaskwa. There's different words. Oh, my 90-minute puzzle. Tiskwa. There, solve my puzzle. I get to say. How would the word atoscale be utilized in a sentence? All right, so atoscale is somebody else. That's the interesting thing about the Cree language and lots of indigenous languages. Not nêhiyaw, atoscale. The interesting thing is that this is actually a complete sentence. That one works, or worked. Atoscale. So, if you wanted to say, my question for you, John, would be like, what sentence do you want to say? You want to say, I was working when I saw my friend, right? You could say, Nigi atoskan. Nigi atoskan. Gagi. Wapamak. Nitotem. Right? I was working when I saw my friend. I think that's how you'd say that. Vault asks, MV Alandra, hope I'm saying that right. I will get to your question in just a second. Vault says, how do you say shadow in Cree? Let's just look it up. Tagaste, something like that. Shadow. So if it's tagaste by you is to cast a shadow. Shadow, I guess, is this one here. Tagaste sinuin, I guess. Tagaste sinuin. That word tagaste pitsagan says to get tagaste paitsagan, which is like a movie or a TV, comes from that word shadow. Tagaste payu is to cast a shadow, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so MV Alandra says, what does 1S, 2S, etc. mean? If you'll bear with me for 1 second, I actually have a YouTube video on the topic. Let me just pull it up. Oh, I could do this through Tiskwa. Is it in Good Notes? Where's my Good Notes? It said I gotta log in. Okay, we'll do this through my YouTube. Tiskwa. I just gotta find my videos. Where's my videos? Where's my videos? Seriously. Oh, view your channel. That's what I want. And then, so I have a YouTube video on my page. If you go to my YouTube is Aaron Fay, and there's a public video on there, and it's this one down here. There's two. I would start with this one called Animacy and Verb Types, because it'll do a review of what the verb types are. But then the 1S, 2S is in this other one, which is the VTA conjugation video. So let me get to the point where I talk about those. So how this works is the 1S is just the first person. That means me. Nia. 1S. That's just me. Nia. And then 2 is you, second person. That's you. Okay. And the third person is 3S, the third person. The S means singular. We're just talking about one person. 3S is third person singular. That's we. Okay. But there's these other concepts in nêhiyawêwin. And then there's this other person. They call this the obviate. There's actually two third persons. There's this third person, we are, and then there's this other third person. So whenever you see that 3 with a little apostrophe, that's another third person. I'll come back and talk about why this is in a minute. Okay. So then we'll jump ahead a little bit here. Okay. So then, if we're talking to you, if I say we're going to the store, let's say that you were, sitting at the table, and there's me and someone else, and I come up to you and I say, we're going to the store. Are you, so do I mean you as well? Or do I just mean us? Because in English, that's ambiguous, right? I might be implying that you're coming with us, or I might be implying that I'm just telling you, us, but not you, is going to go to the store. If it's us, but not you, that's nêhiyawêwin. That's that one plural, what they call that, nêhiyawêwin, okay? If it's all of us, well, where's the next one here? Nêhiyawêwin. If it's all of you, that's kipimpahtâw, okay? That's the second person plural. That's all y'all, second person plural. Okay, then there's another one. If it's all of us, they mark it like this, either 2-1p or 1-2p. That's the first person and the second person plural, or sometimes just 2-1. Kiano, that's all of us. Because there's ways to say that in the language. Again, if I say we, am I including you or am I excluding you? In English, you have to clarify, but in nêhiyawêwin, you don't have to. If I say nêhiyawêwin, I mean not you. But if I say kiano, I mean you as well, us. Nêhiyawêwin is us, but not you. Kiano is us, including you. And then there's nêhiyawêwin, that's them, all of them. And then there's totally another one. We'll come back to this one. So when you look at those, let's go back into this one, like atsimo, okay? So when you go in there and you see these, and you can actually switch these when you go to the Cree dictionary. If you put the plain English labels, you'll see I, you, that person, us but not you, all of us, all of y'all, them, all of them, that other one. Okay, and you can use nêhiyawêwin labels as well. So then you can use nia, kia, that one, wea, nêhiyawêwin, that's us but not you, kiano, that's all of us, kiawêw, that's all of y'all, weawêw, that's them. So you can switch those, but I use these ones because they just take up less space. And when you use the chart, if you use this chart has those labels on it. Right? So when we go and look at, I don't know, this one down here, right? So this is the verbs that involve just one person, right? Those VAIs, they call them, VAIs. Okay, so then this is me, nitatoskan, you, kitatoskan, that person, atoskeo. Nitatoskanan, kitatoskano, kitatoskanawao, all y'all, atoskewak, that's those ones. Toskewa, that other person. Okay, we're going to come back, talk about that other person in a minute. And then in the conjunct, etoskan, that's me. Etoskin, that's you. Etoskate, there's that T we were talking about. Again, etoskeak, that's us, but not you. Etoskeak, that's all of us. Etoskeik, that's all of y'all. Etosketik, or in some areas, etosketwaw. Okay. That's all of them. Toskeit, that other person. Toskeit. These ones over here are the future conditional. We'll talk about those later. Come back to that. Okay. Now let's talk about, so I hope that answers your question, MV Alandra, if that makes sense. Yeah, like exactly what Prism said. Those are the pronoun indicators. Exactly. Maria, yes, I do post my lives on YouTube. I'm a couple weeks behind, but I'll get those caught up as soon as I can. So if we come back to our story, so that's why we need to know, like if we know all of those persons, right? When we're going through these, we know that that's that third person. Same as this one, nêhiyawêwin, again, that's that third person. Nêhiyawêwin, that's that third person and that other person because it's transitive. Okay, that's what we're working on. And then we were going to talk about real quick why there's an A on the end of wistasa. Okay, so let's dig into that for just a second. So we come back to this word. All right, nêhiyawêwin, wistasa. Okay, that one was raised. He was raised with his cousin. So the question might be, why wouldn't you just say wistas? Why do you need wistasa? Because you have to have it there, that little a on the end. Wistasa. It has to be there. And this is why. I'm going to pick on my brothers for a minute. I'm going to say Bill and Warren. I'm going to keep moving my window around so you can read what I'm working on. Hope you could see that. Bill and Warren are standing over there. He's talking to him. Who's doing the talking? In English, we have this concept of word order matters. So if I just said he's talking to him, that's ambiguous. I mean, maybe it's implied that Bill is talking to Warren, but it could be, no, Warren's talking to Bill. Is talking to Bill. So, and if I say it this way, Bill is talking to Warren. The thing about this is that the word talking doesn't change, right? The word order is what matters. The word order is what matters. Warren is talking to Bill. Bill is talking to Warren. But if I use the Cree word, pimpahtâw, okay. If I say Bill pimpahtâw Warren, this is ambiguous. It is unclear who is, because there are two people. If we look at this verb means this third person singular is talking to that other third person. But we don't know who's who in this sentence. We don't know who's who. We don't know which one of these is the third person and which is the other third person. We must mark this. We must mark one of those people. So if I say Bill, I'll say wa. I don't know if it's wa or ah. If I put that wa or an there, now this is immediately clear who's who in this case. Okay? Warren's talking to Bill. In this sentence, Warren is talking to Bill. Warren is the third person, and because Bill has that wa on the end, Bill is this person. Okay? And I could say it the other way, because in nêhiyawêwin, when you're speaking the Cree language, the word order in most contexts doesn't matter. So if I said it this way, now it's the other way around. Now Bill is the third person, and Warren is that other person. Okay? Because of that. Warren wa. Sometimes it's wa, and sometimes it's depending. So when there are two people involved, that's not me and not you. If there's ever a story and a verb that involves two different people, and there's two people in the same sentence, and a verb that involves both of those people, one of them must have a or wa on the end. So you can tell who's doing what to who. Because otherwise, again, back in this example, Bill pimpahtâw Warren, it's ambiguous. Who's talking to who? We don't know. It's the same. This sentence here, Bill pimpahtâw Warren, is the same as this sentence. He's talking to him. It's like, oh, okay, who's doing the talking? We need to know. There's like, it's a cliffhanger. But in nêhiyawêwin, in the Cree language, it's not ambiguous because you put that on the end. So there's two nouns here. Awasis, wistasa. Awasis egi witso pigamat wistasa. He grew up with his cousin. The child grew up with his cousin. It's super clear who and what. Here's another one. Iteo. Iteo is a transitive word. Let's read this next one. Let's move on. Next sentence. Oh, Prism says, if the sentence has a plural word, the entire sentence basically becomes plural. Yeah, there has to be agreement. There has to be agreement between, if you say atimawak, there has to be more than one person. They're telling stories. There has to be agreement between the number of people and the verb. Yeah. Okay, let's read the next one. Did I miss any questions? I think we're good, eh? Yeah, I think we got everything. Okay, cool. Next one. Kitatoesa oskenigitik oskenigitik. Kitatoesa oskenigitik How nêhiyawêwin. So there's a couple of verbs. There's one here. Eoskanigitsik. Or again, eoskanigtwaw in some areas. Nêhiyawêwin. Nipimpahtâwak. This is really cool, okay? You know what's cool about this? We've got, there's a plural one, even though there's more than one person involved in this, it's still intransitive because it doesn't involve an action between two people. So this is technically a verb involving one person, even though it's plural, okay? The action involves one person or one group of people. Nêhiyawêwin, same thing. This verb also just involves one person. But then this one, nipimpahtâwak, this is a verb that involves a person and a thing. Okay, because now this is transitive. He's saying, I'm going to go around and see the earth. I'm going to go around and see the land, I guess. You could think of it that way. So let's look at these. Let's break these down. So if we look at that, we know that tik is plural, right? That tik or that twaw. No, it doesn't need to be bold. Whoops, I don't need that either. My phone's right in the way, so I can't see what I'm doing here. Right? In this case, generally that e conjunct means as, but it can also mean when, depending on the context. So because there's nothing else here, so at the point, apparently, when they were teenagers, when they were young, what does it say over here? When they got to be young men. So, the esa kind of means, whenever you hear stories, they use esa, it means, like presumably, or you always use esa because, maybe you weren't there to see it. It sort of softens I don't want to say the factuality. It's heard a lot in stories. Esa, apparently. And it's one of those words that took me a long time, actually, to figure out how to use it properly. I use esa wrong forever. Esa. It means like, as I understand it, reportedly, as it was said, so it seems, so it appears, apparently, evidently. Esa. And then also like a go, I guess you could say that too. So in this case, it's just something you say in a story. They just, you're in storytelling mode when you hear a lot of esa. So apparently at one point in time, when they were young men, and that one, so we know because that tik is a kind of a giveaway a little bit as to what the verb probably is. I know just because I've studied it, that I can see it right there. That tik probably means this. I think there's other scenarios where that could show up, but it probably means it's those ones, plural, and it's this type of verb, that VAI, that verb involving one person. So knowing that, I can go back. I know that this is the ending, so I can underline that. We can take and look that up. Uskinigu is the word we're looking for. Uskinigu, which means that person is a young man. Uskinigu, which you've probably heard before. Male, youth, adolescent, male. Uskinigu. Okay. So that's where we got that from. Uskinigitik. This one here. How nêhiyawêwin. You probably heard that one too. Sipwihtan. So I know these ones are funny. It's just the way the language works. When you have these words. So, sorry, I'll put this in here. That's a VAI. So this one here. Nêhiyawêwin. I'll just put nêhiyawêwin. That we part right there. Niwi, I'm going to, or I will. I will, I intend to, niwi. You can take that out and just say nisipwetan, I leave. Niwi sipwetan. So there's this thing that happens. If we take a word like that word John asked about before, atoskeo, okay, which actually means that person works. Atoskeo, okay? Atoskeo, that one works, okay? But if I want to say that for me, and again, if I relate this back to my chart, the W part on this, because this is a VAI, a verb that just involves one person, atoskeo. Whoop, I got everything yellow now. That one works, or that one is working, okay? The reason I made that yellow, again, that third person form is the one that you're going to find in the dictionary. And again, there it is right there. It's in yellow. So if you take everything but the W for this type of word, if you take everything but the W for this VAI word, okay, you get the command form, atoske. You're saying, work, sogatoske. Or sogatoskek, work hard. Atoske, work. But this interesting thing happens because this is what they call that VAI. I wonder if I can make that like a blue color, like, yeah, kind of like that. Make it a blue so it kind of matches the chart. That's close. Close enough. If I want to change it for me, if I go look at this, again, I can take all of that, the command form, everything that's underlined right here, and I can put it in here for me, because remember that 1S, that means me. I'm 1S, but there's a little, see that little D right there? That's as big as I can make it. It's right there. There's a little tiny D. That means there's a rule. There's a rule in the way that we change this. And we can find those up at the top of the page. It's right here. That rule, that D rule right there. There's the D. And that rule says if the word ends in E, that's going to become a long A. That's just how it is. The sound that sound at the end of that word is going to change. But only for me and you, only for the positions that involve a 1 or a 2. That's just the way it is. It seems complicated, but you just figure it out. It's not that bad once you kind of wrap your head around it. So what that means is for me, I'm going to use this one here. Okay, I want to say I work. I don't say nêhiyawêwin, but that wouldn't make sense. Oh, and there's another rule here. We'll talk about that. This doesn't make sense. Nêhiyawêwin. That long E right there has to become a long A. The way I say that, nêhiyawêwin. Technically, you could say nêhiyawêwin. There are communities where they will say it this way. It's not very common. There's a kind of another rule in here in the language when you have a what they call a T joiner. When you have two vowels beside each other like this, they put what they call a T joiner in there. So nêhiyawêwin becomes nêhiyawêwin, which means I work or I am working. Nêhiyawêwin. Oh, what's nêhiyawêwin? Take a hike, I'm working right now. Norbu says, it's so interesting. In Arabic, the phrase for I will or I intend to is pronounced nawi. That is interesting. That's super cool. Super cool. Arabic, I'd be, man, if I had the time, another beautiful language. Adam with the T says, what language or Plains Cree, nêhiyawêwin, Plains Cree wide dialect we're working on today. Slav20 says, do you teach Cree only? I guess I'm teaching. I don't really like to teach. I just like to talk about the language. And this is review for me. We're just kind of studying here together. We're just studying this story together, and we're just talking about some of the grammar. Yeah. Okay, so that's where if we look back at that word nisipwetan, that comes from that sipuiteo. Let's get back to that one. Sipuiteo. So it comes from this one. Sipuitan. So that long A-N at the end there, again, that's a giveaway. That's a giveaway for me because I know there's that rule. We just talked about that rule right there where that long E becomes an A right here. That long E turns into a long A right there. This rule, I'll make it bold, I guess. I don't know. That one there. So that's a bit of a giveaway for me. When I see this, that long AN, and then I say ni and an at the end, that's a dead giveaway for me that's that type of word, that VAI. Can't do this very well. Wish I had buttons for this. It'd make this faster. So then that tells me that if I take the ni part and the n off the end, what I'm going to get is sipuite, because that's going to turn back to an E, and sipuiteo, that one leaves. That's what that means. That one leaves. I leave. So I can go find that, even that sipue. The cool thing about that dictionary, you can just take and plug this into that Cree dictionary, hey? It knows how to find all those words. It never used to be like that. It'll tell you what that means. Nisipuitan, I leave, I go off, I set off, I depart. I guess you could use it in some contexts to mean I die. I've never heard it that way. I go away, I depart, I leave. There's different dictionaries in here. This is the Musqueam dictionary. This is the Alberta Elders Cree dictionary. This is also Alberta Elders. This is the Cree Woven Gray. This one here, CW. So there's a bunch of different dictionaries all in one in this on the Itoyona, if you're using that. To say I arrive, nitago sinin, I guess you could say that. Tago sin, this is a special verb, kinda. So if we go back to that other one, sipuiteo or atsimo, they call it a VAI1. So it's a, and they have a little marker here. You can see there's a little, where they show like the VAI, they also show like one person action, right? So there's just one person there. And on let me find another one here. On the verbs that have two people, like sageheo, that person loves someone, then they also show, you can see there's a person, action, and then another person. So you can see there's two people involved in that one, right? Most of your verbs that involve, like most of your VAIs, like atoskeo, most of the time that third person form ends in a W. Like I want to say 90% of the time, but there are a few that don't. Like this word, tagosin, which is to arrive. Or you could say tagoteo, that's another way. Tagoteo is one way you could say that. It's sort of, even though today it just generally means that person arrives, it implies that you're arriving by walking. Tagoteo, you showed up on foot. It doesn't mean that necessarily, like it sort of generally has evolved to mean just like arrive. But the way I learned this, tagoteo is specifically on foot. Tagosin is that person arrives. It's like a more general. They call this, it's still a VAI, okay? But they call it a two, and you don't need to know this. But it's still a VAI. It just happens to have a different ending, right? Tagosin. And so to conjugate this, you just need to know there's a little bit different chart, right? Tagosin. This VAI2, it's technically not on this chart. It's not on here, but it's fairly simple. The chart is just like, you add in for me, in for you, inan, inawao, ino, inwak, iniwa. Like it's relatively straightforward. Tagosin becomes netagosanin, kitagosanin, tagosinnan, kitagosinno or kitagosinano, kitagosinawao, kitagosininawao, tagosinwak, tagosiniwa. Jacob says, not metaphysical, physical arrival like birth. Do you mean like birth? Like to be born? I become. I don't know about become like a, I become. It's like a philosophical word. Like, there's probably a way to say that. I wouldn't know. Physical arrival, ni taugu, to be born. I guess you could say that. But like tagosin would be like to arrive physically, like to show up. Ni tagosin in, I've arrived. Tagosin no, we've arrived. The foot example, well, yes and no. The foot example seems physical and not spiritual at all. But it sort of can be spiritual too, like our songs, like we have sweat songs where we sing about, like the songs we sing at the beginning of the sweat, they have that word tagoteo, like our grandfathers are arriving, our grandmothers are arriving. Egwa, tagoteo, like, so it's not, I mean, I guess you could say it that way, but like it's just, I'm just saying like the implication is that you arrive on foot if you say tagoteo. Where I learned, it's not going to be that way everywhere necessarily. Okay. So back to that sentence. So we're actually doing pretty good because the first day we did this, we only got the first one done. We've got 3 more done, so we just did this one. Keitato esa euskanigitsik. Oh. Nui sepoitan. Nui papam wapa tenaski. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about this one yet. Nui papam wapa ten aski. So again, there's a dead giveaway in this word. Okay, so now we're talking about a different type of verb. I'm going to take the nui part out. I'm just going to say nipimpahtân. So again, there's a dead giveaway in this word for me because it's got ni. Pretty sure it's talking about me, but the ending is ein now, because there's another rule for another type of verb. So this happens to be this type of verb. If we look this up, nipimpahtân. Right, so now we end up with, they call that a VTI, VTI1 if you care. Now it's a person involves something, a person and a thing. So this is that type of verb. If we look on our chart, that's this chart here, VTI. And this is the word we're looking, the form we're looking at right here, nipimpahtân. That's this one right here. Nipimpahtân. And again, there's another rule. For the third person form ends in usually. But again, for whatever reason, the sound changes for me and you. So for a third person, it'd be wapahtâm. For me and you, it's going to be nipimpahtân, kipimpahtân. Nipimpahtânan, kipimpahtâno. Or you can say kipimpahtânano. There's 2 ways to say that one. Kipimpahtâwak, pimpahtâwak, pimpahtâwak. So now we're talking about something's involved. In this case, nipimpahtâwak aski. I'm going to see the land. I'm going to go. Papam means like around, about. Papam, we can just look that up. Papam, papame. Around, about, all over, here and there, hither and thither. Does anybody talk that way? Hither and thither. Oh, I see another comment. How would you say moose antler? So antler's going to be mitte skan or mitte skan. I wonder if you'd say muswa, like right off the top of my head, I'd say like muswa mitte skan, but I'm sure there's a way you could say that in one word. I just don't know what would be the right way. Mususkan? I wonder if you could say that. Mususkan or musuteskan? I don't know. You'd have to ask a fluent speaker that one, because I don't know. Eskan or miteskan is an antler. Eskan, eskanak. I think it's plural too, isn't it? Yeah, or animate? Yeah, it's animate too. Eskanak. Bisamoyapi is rainbow. Rainbow, I learned how to say it last night. Bisamoyapi. It's like the sun's net. Pimpahtâw. Pimpahtâw. Eu go. Pimpahtâw. Go ahead and take a screenshot if you want. Pimpahtâw is like a web or a net, I guess. I think you can just say pimpahtâw. Nope. How do you say net? Ayapi. No, that's not it then. What's got p in it? Discord. Let's look at another site here. Go to Ben's site. Maybe I've understood that word wrong all this time. P. Yeah, like a line, like a. Maybe it's from atsapi, from a bow. Is that what it's from? Well, there's another word for rainbow. Nêhiyawêwin. I've never heard that one. What if it has to do with like the rope or something? Yeah, interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, the string. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. I'm just gonna go back. Kimwanapoy. Is that N dialect, Cam? Or Kimwan? You mean Kimwanapi? Or do you mean apoy on purpose? Is that a typo? Mananto niya. Kimaga gaya sa spin. Hey, we got Cree Cam in the house. Okay, I'm gonna go back check my shadow. We already did shadow. Hey Cam, how do you guys say moose antler out that way? Moose. Ash says moose always scun. I don't know. I just don't. I know I've heard the word. I just can't think of the right way to say it. Moose antler. Yeah. Moose scun. Yeah, that's kind of what I wondered. Moose scun. Moose. Well, I was thinking moose scun. That sounds right to me. Moose scun. Z says the same. Moose scun. That makes sense. Hey. Thank you for that. Moose scun. All right. Okay, let's get back to our story here. What time are we at? Oh, geez. 8 o'clock. Let's finish this one verb and then we'll wrap it up. I didn't realize it's been 2 hours already. We're just having fun. Okay, nêhiyawêwin. So papam is like roundabout, around the place. I'm going to go around and see it. So wapahtên. So remember I was saying there's a dead giveaway. For me, when I see that nê and that ain, I know we're probably talking about a transitive word. So in this particular case, this word means I see something. I see it. I see something. Okay. And it comes from this word. Wapahtâm. Wapahtâm. That one sees something. Wapahtâm. So for whatever reason, that changes to a long E. Again, there's a rule in that chart. And if you go back and look here, you can see there's the third person form there. And that changes to an E for me and you, or for any of the ones that have a 1 or a 2 in them. That changes to an E for that VTI form. I'm going to go around and see the earth or see the land, I guess. What does it say over here? I want to explore the land, is how they interpret this. Going to go around about and look at the land. This is important. This one here. Iteo. Esa. There's that esa again. Let's do this one last verb. I'm going to leave isse in this way, I guess. Over here it says I'm leaving. You see how it has esa there? And in the interpretation it says he must have said. Because the storyteller is not certain, hey? This implies that the storyteller wasn't there. This is like they're recollecting a story they've heard maybe. That's how our stories were passed along, right? Through recollection. That's why sa is in there, apparently. Or so it seems. But desiteo is important. There's an important distinction, because if we say itweo, that one says, maybe thus, says something. Okay, that's just this one here. But if we use iteo, that one says, maybe thus, to someone. This is now, this one here is that word that only involves one person. Oh, I didn't color this other one. Tisqua. I'm putting the colors if that's helpful, so they match the chart. And then this one is now transitive, and this is going to be that darker blue on the chart, maybe. I don't know. It's what color is it anyway? It's kind of a, it's like almost like a purple, eh? Like a purple color. That's too blue. Let's use like a more of a purple color. Let's use, close enough. That one says to someone. So now we're at that one who's the third person says to that other person. So back to our story, this is important. This is important because I'm going to leave now, he said to his cousin. Because they haven't changed positions in the story from a proximity perspective. What started out as the boy and his cousin who became young men, technically the boy we were talking about is still in focus. That's the difference between these two positions. Awasis, egwamina, sa. That's the difference between these two, hey? This one is in focus. This is the person we're talking about. And this is the person that's sort of supplemental to the context, the other person. They have words for these. These are fancy words. You don't need to know them, okay? But they do call this proximate, like a little closer, maybe proximity. You could think of it that way. This one's closer in context. Try and get this lined up. And this one over here, the word they use for that is called obviate. That just means further away. That's all that means, obviate. When you obviate something, you make it further away. That's all that means. So that's what they call these. This one's closer. This one's further away. And not physically. We're not talking about physically in the story necessarily, though they could be. It's more the focus. This one's closer to the focus of the story. This is the person we're talking about, the proximate. This one's further away to the context of the story. They're sort of supplemental to what we're talking about. That's why that's important. Awasis is in focus. Wistsasa, their cousin, is sort of supplemental to that. We're saying they grew up with their cousin. But if we didn't clarify that up front, we just had this whole suddenly, at some point they were grown. Who's saying it? We don't know. Until we get to this. Iteo e sa. Because these two people haven't changed where their focus is, because they haven't changed position in that proximate and obviate, meaning closer to the context and further from the context, awasis is still in focus. And this reinforces that it was the awasis who was talking. Oasis was the one that said, I'm going to go explore the land. I'm leaving now. And he said it to his cousin, Esa. That was a lot in that was a lot in the last little hour to bit. I'm glad I nasum tinawa kakio gape. I don't know gakam tagosid agakamaya, the ones who stayed. All of y'all that stayed for that. I hope that wasn't too confusing. So we left off at number 5 here. We're going to pick up this story next week right here. And we'll just visit I'll flip my camera around. We'll visit for 15 minutes or something. Cree says, obviate gets confusing when multiple obviates are happening. Yeah, definitely. And sometimes speakers they'll switch, or right, like it's not a perfect system. Sometimes there can be ambiguity, and you might have to ask for clarification. But if you don't understand this, the difference between the person who's in focus and the person who's not, then this just lots of this just won't make sense. Or when you do understand this, how this works, then a lot more stories make sense. Right? When you tell a story, you have to be able to put people you have to be able to, when you talk about people, you need to be able to put them in these positions from a context perspective in order to be understood. Kind of like back to that example back here, right? He's talking to him. Who's doing the talking? Who's talking to who? They are standing over there. He's talking to him. Who's doing the talking? That's ambiguous in the English language, but it's not ambiguous in the Cree language. I hope that was helpful. Okay, let's visit. Then I'm going to go have supper. Get my camera turned around. Flip camera. How? That way I do go live on Sundays, usually at the same time. Kiwa.
I completely fucked the bacon.
Oh, just do your best.
Well, I sat down. Well, I got up to stir the soup and forgot there was bacon.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah.
so it's really like stuck together on the one side, on the bottom.
Just we're gonna chop it up anyway. It'll be fine. Yep. Yeah. So I go live on Sundays. 6 o'clock Pacific for about 2 hours usually. I tried to do a thing on Friday. Depending on how my Fridays go, I tried to do a live, on Friday, and with some like guest seats and stuff. I want to maybe try and do like a Gilgato and like just a kind of like a conversational thing. I don't know if TikTok's the right platform. Hey, Ronnie. Kaya spin. I'm good. I'm in good shape. I had a really rough go last year. I won't get into it, but I'm good now. Doctor fixed me up, and I'm good as I've ever been. Yeah. Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, I got started on time tonight. We're near about 10 after 6. Trying to be mindful. My wife's grad's coming up this week. So we're cramming on crafts and stuff. They have a giveaway, so I'm doing a bunch of leather stuff. I don't know if I can't share pictures on here. All the stuff's out there. I'm doing some keychains and some other stuff, some notebook covers and stuff. So I've been trying to get some craft stuff. She's busy over with their cohort. They're building ribbon skirts or shirts. I forget. They're sewing. They're cramming on giveaways for their grad. So I'm being highly organized today because I got to go back out and do more crafts after this live. Any questions from the live tonight? No problem, John. Miyasini tago sinian. There, I use that tago sin. Miyasini tago sin. It's good that you came. It's good that you showed up. The Sister Bro Show. Hey, aha, tapwe. Bogospi, anytime. Maybe I'll get Cam on here next time. We'll have. Hey Cam, if you're still around, what do you think about hanging out for an hour one night a week for just like some chit chat, just to like practice, do a kind of a conversational thing, share words. Maybe we can get some other learners on here. I don't know if TikTok's the right place, but I want to try it. Just like, by the way, if you're in Calgary, there's a conversational group firing up in Calgary this week on the 4th, Wednesday, 5:30 at the Blackfoot Diner. Nikki, is that right? Blackfoot Diner? Tisqua. Blackfoot Truck Stop Diner, is that the one? That's the one. Blackfoot Truck Stop Diner. Pretty sure that's it. On 17th Ave, right? Yeah, I'm going to plug this thing for weeks and weeks. So don't be, Nikki, don't be discouraged if it's a small group to start. Though, I don't know, if we plug it enough, you might get 100 people. I don't know. But that's super exciting. So there's a conversational group firing up in Calgary. It's on Wednesdays at 5:30. This is the first week. If you're in Calgary, go check it out. It's just very casual. I know they're hoping for fluent speakers, but if you're just starting out, just go hang out. I'm super excited about this. I learned so much more language. I learned more language at conversational group, or as much language at conversational group than I did anywhere else. Probably all of the other places combined. Because you get to talk, you get to share. If learners get together and share their experience, there's so much language learning. And then if a fluent speaker shows up, that's good, but it gets really intimidating. And if you're not ready for that, then it can be really, what would you say? It could be really intimidating. Like, even when I go to oh, manato, Julia, miya sini tago sinian, kaya si sa spin. I met Julia. We ran into each other at the conference in Edmonton a couple months ago. It was so awesome. Anyway, when I was last at, I went to conversational group a while ago, and I announced on TikTok, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be this conversational group. A whole bunch of fluent speakers showed up, which was awesome. And when they spoke, everybody just got quiet. We just listened, right? But just be careful that just because a fluent speaker shows up like that, you don't expect them to like teach you something or whatever. I like to be prepared. Like, if I know somebody's going to show up, or I think somebody's going to show up that's a fluent speaker, and I'll just like cram and like try and be prepared with like, oh, what am I going to want to talk about? Because usually what happens when you go somewhere and a fluent speaker, like, you're sitting there and it gets quiet and everybody's having their coffee or eating supper or whatever, and then they'll lean over and they'll say, Kia, atsimo. Like, like tell a story or talk about something, right? And it's like, okay, what am I going to say? So don't be discouraged if you're just a learner, you're just starting out. Definitely go take the opportunity to go to conversational group. If you can, if you're in an area where they don't have conversational groups, start one. Just pick a night and just show up and put it on Facebook and make a poster and post it at the community center or the bingo hall or the hockey arena, or post it everywhere, and just keep showing up somewhere one night a week. And people will just show up, because I tell you what, everywhere I go, everybody I talk to, everybody is hungry for their language right now. Everybody's aware. Everybody I talk to is like, I just want to learn my language. I just want to learn my language. So we have to take it upon ourselves to make the opportunities for people to show up. Because if you have the ability to create just a space like that where people can show up, they will. But just keep going. If you show up one week and you're the only one there, just show up again, because... right? That's the thing that's beautiful about conversational group, is once it gets established and gets going, you'll get different people every week. You'll get a group of the same people that show up all the time. You'll get a small group of learners that come back, and you kind of keep each other accountable. But then this week, somebody will show up, fluent speaker will show up. Then next week, it'll be someone else. And then the next week, it'll be someone else. So if you get a group going, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up. And if you show up at somebody else's conversational group and nobody's there, then just stay until it's right. If your established time is like 5 to 7, just hang out, because they might be running late, right? Be the person that keeps the group going. Wayne Jackson started that conversational group in Edmonton in 2008, and it's still going. They still meet there. They still meet there every week. There's a group that shows up every single week. Sometimes it's just a couple people. I was there one time, there was like 25 of us. So just keep showing up. There, that's my rant about conversational group. Oh, I hate that word. I'm not a teacher. I'm just a language learner. It's going to go back through my comments here. Yeah, thanks, Ronnie. I'm not a teacher. I try not to teach. I just share what I've been told. Gonna play crib. That's cool. If you go on Facebook, Eric Wolvengray has a whole bunch of words for the, I think he developed it with a bunch of fluent speakers. They've got words for like the different suits and whatnot. T. John says, Mamskati tagosuin. Mamskati tagosuin. I hope I'm saying that right. What does that mean? Mamskati tagosuin. What does that mean? I feel like I know that word. Mamskati tagosu. Sounds amazing. Amazing sounding something. Sounds wondrous. Miasin. Yeah, that's a good word. Mamskati tagosu. That's a cool word. Yeah. Oh, miasin. Hey. Appreciate that. Working on yeah, we could talk about the sounds of the language for a while. But I give credit to Reuben Quinn, who taught us Takbegana. He spent a great deal of time talking about the sounds of the language. And then I believe if you're a learner and you're struggling with being understood or feeling like you're being understood or feel like your pronunciation is correct, spend a lot of time listening to fluent speakers as much time, especially if you have fluent speakers from your community or your area. Listen as much as you can. Listen to the language and then try to, when you are trying to speak, just try and say the words exactly the same as you hear it. Like, and I read a lot. I read stories on my TikTok, or we'll do a lot of reading or whatever. If you understand that we don't read based on the sounds of the letters, we read based on the shapes of the words, meaning you kind of need to know the word, or you need to know the sounds of the language for the way words are shaped in order to pronounce things correctly. The sounds come first. The sound of the language comes first. So when you're learning, focus on your listening. And if you're just starting out and you feel like you're struggling with hearing the sounds and things like that, I know it's really hard, but just listen to the language as much as you can. Just put on fluent speakers and just listen. And then you'll start hearing little sounds. You're like, oh, do I know that word? I can't listen to the language in the background. Like if I'm working, I can't just put on like the Cree radio or just or whatever, because my brain will start catching words and hearing. It'll get distracted. But that's a good thing. Start listening as much as you can. And then you'll get to a point where you're hearing stuff and you're pretty sure. It's like, oh, what does that word mean? When you get to the point where you're like, what does that word mean? That's a good place to be. That means you're hearing the words. That means you're hearing the sounds of the language. And that means you're in a good position to start speaking the language, to start saying the words correctly. That means that you have internalized the sound, the correct way to say something. And then, for me, that's a good place to start reading and writing, because you have the sounds now. You can start associating the sounds with the words on the page. You don't have to do it that way. But if you're struggling in your language journey at all, just listen to the language more. Listen, find things that are at a level where your brain is starting to say, what is that word? Oh, do I know that word? Oh, what's that word? And it can be really hard and grindy to just listen to the language and not understand anything. But just do it. Tutasho squats, just do it. Wilson asks, did you already know some Cree, or was English? English was my first language. I didn't grow up with the language. No, I didn't. I didn't hear nêhiyawêwin until Terry's great comment. I'll come back to that in 1 second. When I was a young man, when I started working at the Friendship Center, because I got involved in the Métis local, was my older brother was working at the Friendship Center, and we were going through like sorting out our membership with the M&A and all that stuff. And then I started working at the Friendship Center as a young man, and then started getting more involved in like cultural stuff. And then we started doing like cultural camps and things, at Sweat Lodge and the fasting camp and all of that. And then I started hearing the language, mostly around ceremony, the most. And then I didn't get interested in the language for a long time, but I would hear it like a bit. It's always, I think like most people, like when you hear people pray in the language, it just sounds really like you just feel the what's the word I'm looking for? When I hear the fluent, even now when I hear fluent speakers pray in the language, like it just feels very, like there's just like a draw there, like a connection, like a, I don't know the right word is, but I still feel that. So like the spirit of the language, I guess. And so when I first started, I was like, oh, I really want to be able to pray in the language, and I still want that. But now more than anything, I want my kids to, I want to be able to pass the language on to my kids. I want them to understand and be able to speak in the future. That's what I want now. And of course to pray and understand fluent speakers. I want all the language. Witsisuk is a fantastic group. If you're not, let me turn my camera around. And another one. Oh, somebody asked, Julia Olette was just here. Julia has a fantastic course, 52 weeks of Cree. And all the videos are on, I think, Julia, do you have YouTube videos too? I keep seeing your videos pop up, which is another great one because it's very phrase-oriented. And Julia's here on TikTok. Julia's on Facebook, so definitely go check that stuff out. And then Witsisuk's another one, Pimpahtâw, who's fantastic as well. Let me flip my camera around. Another great, you have to request to be in this book. Facebook. Where's it at? I think I have it up here. Just go. No, it's not there. Witsisuk. It's a group. There it is right there. Senapan. And Senapan, this is like so another like underrated resource. Because Senapan does a whole bunch. So this is the group Witsisuk. You have to oh, I can't. Where is it? Right there. Witsisuk. So go find this group, because Senapan's like constantly posting stuff in here all the time, like teaching resources, stories and stuff. And also Senapan has a YouTube channel, which is like hugely underrated. Let's see if I can find it. Witsisuk. Spell it right? Yeah. Right here. Pimpahtâw on YouTube. Another fantastic. And Senapan, she's like constantly uploading videos. Like this was 11 days ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago. There's a bunch of like, she's constantly building materials for teaching. But then there's like fluent speakers stuff here too. Like she cuts out pieces of stories and shares that. It's a very underrated, another great channel for learners if you're at a beginner to maybe even low intermediate level, or even intermediate really. There's something on this YouTube channel for everyone, because she speaks in the language almost all the time. Even when she's talking about her resources and stuff, she uses so much language. It's a really fantastic channel. It's one of those things and I mean, I don't mean any disrespect to anybody in the way that they do things, but I love it when I meet a fluent speaker who has resources in the language, but then they also speak in the language. Because lots of times, fluent speakers, rightly so, probably they don't want to not be understood, right? It'd be frustrating to just speak all the time and not be understood. But like with Senapan, that doesn't scare her off. She'll speak English a little bit sometimes, but then she'll just fall back to Cree again and just speak Cree. And it's pretty cool. Because you get to hear words and phrases that are like like when she talks about making the materials, and when she talks about, I used to do one-on-ones with Senapan, and she would talk about like building materials and like verbs and nouns and all of this different stuff, but like in the language. And anyways, just fantastic. So great mention. Flip camera. Who said that? Forget who it was. Terry said that. We'd see. So it's a great group. And you can reach out to Senapan. I'm sure you could reach out to Julia too. I haven't reached out to Julia. I reach out to lots of fluent speakers and mentors and different learners, asking questions all the time. So yeah, Wilson says, thank you for answering. I'm nearly 31. To learn from my children too. It's not too late. Just get started. You can go to my site too. I compile resources on my site. I'll pull that up if it's helpful. You flip my camera around again. My site is kiano.net. I'll just actually put it up on another post-it note here. Where is that post-it note? One of these has my site. I wrote it on here so it'd be easy to see, but I lost it. That one? It's on the floor. Yep. Nope, not that one either. Okay, I'll just pull it up. This is my site here. And I compile resources, kiano.net. So you can go there, kiano.net. Okay, and then, and so from here, if you go to the top, and you can go to Learner Library, you can click on there, and then you can search, and I put, sorry, let me get that there. I know this is super tiny, but like if you search, like I got a link to that 52 Weeks of Cree and Repeat After Me, like Julie Ouellette stuff in here. All of the stuff. As I find stuff, I will put it in here, so if you want to like watch stuff. I don't have every video on YouTube on here, but I have like different material, history of the Cree language, Reuben Quinn, Darren Okimahasim, Marjorie White, so on and so forth. If you want to listen, there's like podcasts or any audio that I find. If you want to read, here's reading resources and then apps. And then there's more filters too. I try to categorize it a bit, but this is a good resource if you're just looking for stuff. You can just go there, and as I find things, I just put stuff here. So you could go through here forever because there's a ton of resources. And obscure stuff too, like I have a scan of that book. What is it called? The Indian Names for Alberta Communities. I got a PDF on there. Other Glenbow stuff, tattooing practices of the Cree Indians, stuff like that. There's another book about Indian Sign Language. I have a copy of that on here. So just as I find stuff, I put it here. So as a bit of a resource for when people are like, where do I go? Oh, and by the way, that Gene Okimasis. No, that didn't work. Language of the Plains. So if you go here and you search for Language of the Plains, then you can find that Cree Language of the Plains PDF is here. The workbook, the PDF, and then the audio link. The audio can be tricky to find because there's been a couple of versions uploaded online, and one of them's got like the audio's not complete. Anyway, so this is the complete audio. So if you go there, it'll take you to the correct SoundCloud with all of the workbook lessons, and this is Gene Okimasis reading the workbook stuff. So anyway, hope that's helpful. Okay. Flip the camera. The pile. This is my. Hey, you know what those Post-its are? Let me show you this. I'm on about stories right now. Nina says we need more language teachers, educators like yourself. We all need to become those people, I think, or to the degree that we are able to all become language warriors, language advocates, language learners, language sharers, language everything. All of us. That's how we revitalize our languages. Tishkwa, the Post-it notes. Check this out. Okay, I'm not going to read this right now. Oh, I got to turn my camera around. Check this out. I was just talking about this, the power of stories. We're just talking about the power of stories. So I read these stories when there's snow on the ground. But, okay, this story here, all of these Post-it notes, I had all of these Post-it notes, had language on them, and they were all, okay, all these Post-it notes were stuck on this page over here on the English side. So as I ran, just like we did today, we went through and we would today we went through and we looked at all of the different verbs, right? And we looked them up, found out like what are they are. We talked about the obvious, we talked about stuff. I used to just do this myself in the story. I'd run across a word that I didn't know in a story. I would go and find it, and then I would write the word on a Post-it note, and these were all stuck here, okay? And I was just talking to my wife, because I pick up these Post-it notes, and I just read through all these words. I know all those words now, because we keep reading these stories over and over and over again. Every once in a while, I'll run into another word that it's like, oh yeah, what's that word again? But we've done these stories a bunch of times. And so now when I read the story, I know all those words. That's why the pile of Post-it notes is sticking there. that's why I wanted to talk about that, is because that's the power of stories. Is stories have all of that like repetition, right? There's another activity that I want to start doing again. I haven't done it for a while because it's kind of hard, but it's pretty cool. The thing about it is when you read a story, again, like when I run into that one word, I'm like, oh yeah, what's that word again? Because I know the story and I know the context around what's happening, it's like, oh yeah, that's what it means. There's another activity that's a storytelling activity that we can do when you've got a bit of language. It's really hard to do, but I want to start doing it again. And basically it's the same idea. You take a personal story and you record yourself telling the story for like 5 minutes or something. If you get to the end of it, you just start over until you've done 5 minutes. And then every time you run into a word you don't know how to say it, you go find out, you go ask somebody, how do I say this, or how would I say this? And then, you write it down or whatever. And then you record yourself telling the story again, but not reading the story. You got to tell the story off the top of your head. And it's really hard because you got to remember all those words. But the whole point is you do that every day, like a couple times a day for like a week. And then by the time you get to the end of the week, you watch the video of you telling the story at the end of the week and compare it to the video of you telling the story at the beginning of the week, right? And at the end of the week, you start over, you do a new story. And you pick another story. It has to be about your life or something you did or something whatever. So it's relevant to like you. It's a context you know and you understand. And it helps you remember those words relevant to your own experiences. Sort of like comprehensible input or whatever they call that, right? And then that's just preparing for when you're in a room with fluent speakers and somebody's like, Atsimo. And they're like, oh, I got a story now. I probably couldn't tell that one story, but I'm going to start doing this. There's a story I tried to do. I still have the videos, actually, of me telling this story when I can't even remember the words, when we were making a road, when we were cutting some trees to make a road for my dad. There's a couple stories there I want to try and go back and tell. Okay, I'm going to go back through my comments one more time. Terry says, yes, we are all responsible. The sooner we all realize that we've just got to, not to say that we're not going to get help, but we can't be looking externally for people to give us the language. We have to take it. We have to take responsibility for that, or take control of our own language learning for ourselves, and then go out there and get it, right? Go wherever you can, or utilize whatever you need to do to get your language. T. John, glad to have come across your page. Tapwe. That's hanging out with other learners that's the highest leverage, that's the highest value activity. Whenever we start out as learners, we're always like, oh, I got to go hang out with fluent speakers, and that's good. But if you have very little language, it's just going to be challenging and frustrating, right? Hang out with learners. Not to say don't hang out with fluent speakers. If they're speaking the language, hang around and listen for sure. And if you have little bits of language, use what you can. But in my experience, you will learn more in the beginning from other learners than you will from fluent speakers. Because just because a fluent speaker has the language, it doesn't mean that they can teach you, right? And I've done that too. It's like a fluent speaker shows up and then we all sit down, we get quiet, and we're like, oh, they're gonna talk or something. And then the fluent speaker was like, what do you want? I just came to visit. Yeah, I can smell supper. I know I'm gonna go eat. We're just hanging out. Just get through my questions. I'm gonna go. Okay. Any last questions? We're gonna wrap it up there. I'll be back next. I'm gonna try again. Can I go this Friday? If I get the opportunity this Friday, I'm gonna do another Gilgato, and we'll see what happens. Friday night, probably about, I don't know, pick a time, maybe 7 o'clock. Otherwise, I'll see you all on Sunday. Okay, kakio kitam skat nawao, kananas kum tinawao, kakio gapi tagusinik, kakio gapi giogoyik, everybody that come to visit tonight. I appreciate it. Gwa, ko tagik, kawapim tinawao, Miupaige. We'll see you all next time again. So everything goes well. Okay, muestas.